This is where they die. This is where we fight. This is where they die.
Welcome to the Spartan Boxing Radio Show. I'm your host, Dave Carr, along with Corling Duran. Today we're going to talk about boxing and only boxing. No other sports, because this is a sport that we love. In our first episode, one of the fights that just recently got made and now is canceled because of a fighter having hurt his hand is the fight between... What's the fight that just got canceled, Corling?
This fight right now is either canceled or postponed. The one that's here in San Antonio, or that was going to be here in San Antonio.
The Lipinets.
Mikey Garcia.
Did you see that?
Lipinets. That's sad, man. Dude, I saw his hand though.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You know, he has a legitimate excuse.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna knock it, but at the same time, it's kind of bittersweet for me. I'm a little bit happy because I didn't like that match anyway. It's stupid. It's pointless.
I really don't know what Mikey Garcia is doing at 140. The fights at 140 are not
right.
There's nothing really special at 140. And all the special fights, we counted 10 fights at 135 that would be main events. And
Absolutely.
Here he is jumping to 140 for what? To go to 147? He can get killed at 147.
Well, you know, I think he's going for a belt. I mean, that's him trying to go for a belt at 140, maybe to say that he's, you know, this many divisions and this many weight classes, this many titles, you know, whatever. But even still, though, like you said, it doesn't prepare him for anything else at 140 because 140 is kind of a wasteland since Terrence Crawford left. It doesn't. 147's out the question. You know, he's way too small. You saw that in the Broner fight. Lucky he was fighting Broner and not anyone else with a real pulse at 140 or 147. And you know, I mean, there's fights down there at 135. There's fights at 130. These guys can come up and see him. I don't understand that.
Lomachenko can come up to 135 and fight him.
I think. You know what? I'm going to be real honest with you right now.
You don't think he's going to fight him?
Lomachenko comes up to 135. If he comes up to 135 and fights Mikey, I think he beats Mikey. It's not going to be a knockout by any means. I don't think that Mikey's going to quit. I think that Mikey will get thoroughly outboxed, though. I don't think he can land anything, and he's going to get turned all night long. Mikey, it's something about Mikey. I like him as a fighter, but he's very disciplined, and he's too fundamental to beat somebody like Lomachenko. You got to be a little bit out the box.
That's if Loma comes up to 135.
Yeah. You know what, though? I don't know what these fighters are doing, though. You know, what I like to see is these fighters go and stand on a division. Be the man, like your boy Terrence Crawford. In one division, he can be the face of that division, and then that's it. You know, then you move up once you take care of business or clean it out or, you know, whatever. It's always going to be mandatories and all of that. But you know what? When you feel that your job is done at 140, 154, 160, whatever, then move up or move down or go for these big money fights. Once you take care of business in your weight class, then those big money fights are going to come. I don't understand what guys like Mikey are doing. This is crazy. I like natural progression, natural growth. And this isn't what these guys are doing. Even Lomachenko is guilty of this. This is crazy.
Well, Garcia got offered $3 million to go face Lipinets. Can you blame him? And, you know, and this is regardless of who offered it to him. I can't blame Mikey Garcia for going and saying, oh, $3 million to fight a guy that 13 fights? Sure, I'll move up. Why not? He did the same thing for Broner. He didn't want to take Broner the fight until they offered him the money. Then he said, oh, wait a second. Yeah, I'll go up. I'll go up and fight him. He had no interest in fighting Broner.
And I really don't blame you for taking it. But at the same time, if you're a fan, it makes you seem a little bit suspect to where it seems like they're trying to cash out or get out the game they're not really 100% serious about this boxing game.
Same thing with Danny Garcia.
Well,
that's what I see with Danny Garcia was the same thing.
100%. I agree. And you're using it or they're using it as a hustle, maybe to just be comfortable later on to where they can retire young. And
At 135, Garcia can
yep,
fight Linares. Okay, which is probably the best
that's
fight.
the fight.
That's the best fight in that category. But not only can he fight Linares,
Yep.
he can fight Robert Easter Jr., who actually waited for him to turn down the fight before he took a fight. He was waiting for Garcia
Right.
to take his fight. He wouldn't take it, so he went and took
Right.
the Fortuna. He's fighting Fortuna.
Yeah.
I like that fight, and I like Fortuna's chances in that fight, by the way. And then not only can he fight, that's the easiest fight to make because they're both under the same manager. They're both under the same
Right.
station. There's Terry Flanagan in that division.
Right.
Terry Flanagan is in that. The guy's 33-0. Who else do you have in that division?
You're thinking about the 35. So you got Linares, you got Flanagan, you got
Beltran in that division. That would be a
Beltran,
great fight. That would be a great fight.
And not only that though, that's definitely a winnable fight for Mikey. To be honest with you, I would favor Mikey going away in that fight.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't understand. And I really don't want to make this into a Heyman or this thing or a network thing.
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let you do it.
Guys throughout multiple weight classes. Yeah, I mean, hey, I'll do it when I see fit.
Yeah.
Lipinets just got a belt, 12-0 or 13-0 or whatever. This guy is unproven. I mean,
his best fight, his best opponent is Lenny Sapovina is his best opponent so far. That's it.
That's the thing. And this guy, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was pressuring Julius Ndongo to fight, but he didn't want to fight Crawford. This guy is a new kid on the block. Why are you gunning for him? And why are you doing it at 140?
140,
because
there's no
of course, there. But the thing is, though, like I said, Mikey's lucky that he fought Broner at 140 because basically anybody else, he would be food up there at 140. That's easy, and it's just because he's smaller in stature.
Yeah.
He's not, and Mikey isn't one of these guys like Lomachenko who has these overwhelming physical gifts that just jump off the page. He's very technical, very fundamental, and well coached. So that's where, Mikey can kind of get over on 85 to 90% of opponents because he has those. But at the same time, why would you? Now, the Robert Easter one makes me kind of mad because I understand this. To my understanding, that Robert Easter was pretty pissed when Mikey turned down that fight. I don't see why that fight couldn't be made unless Mikey and his team have a little bit of trepidation with that matchup. So I don't understand. I really don't understand. Linares is the best fight that can be made, though.
It can still be if you see.
Well, and see, not only that, I know, and you know how much I just hate Golden Boy, but I know that Golden Boy would have no trouble at all coming here to San Antonio. And having this fight here at the Alamo Dome, Mikey Garcia and
well, Linares is
Jose
fighting
Linares.
Gesta. He's fighting Mercedo Gesta.
They,
So he's already out. He's spoken for.
Yep.
But you have
That's right. He has Gesta. That's next month, right?
You have Richard
Or is it
Comey
later
at
on this month?
135 also. The Ghanan fighter.
Man, and Comey gave Robert Easter a tough.
Yeah.
I thought that was a draw, to be honest with you. That was a tough fight. Real entertaining. He has Shavakov down there too. Dennis Shavakov. Shavakov is coming off of a loss to Robert Easter, but he beat Robert Easter, man. I mean, luckily
I didn't see that
for
fight.
Robert Easter, that fight was in Toledo or Cincinnati or whatever. That was an absolute travesty. You need to go back and watch that. That was one of those Al Heyman specials to where it was on Bounce TV. So, I mean, you have to have probably a digital analog cable signal at the same time in order to get that channel. So I mean, I got the most premium package on DirecTV, and I can't get that channel. So but that's another issue altogether. Go watch that fight.
Um, I'll watch it.
go
I'll watch it
go
tonight.
watch that fight though.
I'll watch it tonight.
Yeah, absolute travesty, man. You, I'll tell you this. Um, what I had it at 8 rounds to 4 for Shavakov, and Shavakov, he's an Abel Sanchez trained fighter, good
Yeah,
fighter, man.
yeah.
He has that, that kind of, I don't want to say a Triple G style, but he has that attitude. You can tell he's in shape. He works hard, and his basics they're real sound. And Robert Easter couldn't cope, even though he was way bigger, way taller, way faster.
Which makes you think,
He couldn't cope.
why
Couldn't cope.
wouldn't that's what makes me mad. Mikey Garcia could have fought him. That's incentive enough to go, 135, I can go ahead and get this belt over here, unify,
Right.
go, and then go after Linares and unify the whole division.
Or not only that, he can fight. The guy that won/lost to Robert Easter, and then they can just build up that fight for the next one here in the middle of the year or something like that. I mean, it seems elementary, it seems easy, but I mean, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I really don't understand
How
that,
do you
though,
how
because
do
that
you
Robert
pay
Easter
him?
fight.
How do you pay him
Um,
$3 million for that fight? That's where the math, it just does not.
yeah, three million is a lot, man.
That's a
I
lot of money.
don't
What's going to
I
happen
don't
now?
know.
He's going to ask for $5 million to go fight somebody of name, or what is he going to do? Not be happy and go take off?
What's Mikey's situation though? He doesn't have a promoter. Like, what
He's
is this?
he's got
How?
an advisor, which is Al Heyman.
Right.
That's his advisor. He
Yeah.
doesn't have a promoter. He's basically a free agent. So
Right.
he's basically at the mercy of who's going to give him work,
Yeah.
who's going to promote him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have
Yeah.
many options because
Yeah. Yeah.
he was on the outs with Bob, so I don't see him getting any fights over there. He's gonna have
Yeah.
to go to Golden Boy because the other guys, DeBella and all these other guys, they're smaller time. They don't have
Yeah.
them. They don't have the money, or the means to promote him properly.
Well, Mikey, see the way that it looks to me, Mikey's in kind of a weird spot. On one hand, he's in a good spot because okay, he doesn't have a promoter, so he's not really tied down to any promotional company or any, I guess, contractual agreement. But number two, if it it's a negative for him because he's not. I think Golden Boy tried to throw something at him before, and they wanted him in a 3-fight
Yeah,
deal.
they did. They
They
did. They
wanted
offered him a
they,
3-fight deal. They offered him, you know,
which I understand. I do understand that.
yeah,
You know, it's to me, it's smart for him not to take it, but he doesn't have that clout to where he's a Mayweather or somebody like or a
right,
Cotto
yeah,
to where he can just say like or a George Foreman even back
yeah.
in the day, I'll do this on a fight by fight basis because really bottom line boxing kind of goes on without Mikey Garcia. So he's he's not that big of a star to where he can demand that and people are like we got to make this money with him one time and one time only. I don't he doesn't have that. He's in a weird spot. I don't know what
There has to be a build
he's
up.
going to do.
There has to
I
be a
don't know.
build up in a
That's
fighter to be able to get to the point where they can say, I'm my own guy." Mayweather did it. Cotto,
yep.
he did it. Manny Pacquiao could
Yep.
have done it at a certain point. Um,
Mm.
the only other guy I see, if for example Crawford cleans out or at least beats most of the welterweight division, he could do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
when you're sitting out for 2 years and then you come back and you're not taking any promotional contracts and nobody's really pushing you the way you should be pushed, and then you end up fighting, easy fights for a lot of money.
Yeah.
I see him just cashing. He basically, it's almost like he's cashing out. He's not cashing out, but it's almost like he's just taking advantage of the situation and just looking at the business end instead of looking at his legacy.
And another thing, I know that Mikey knows. Mikey knows what's out there. And he's not one of these fighters now that's just coming off of a suspension, to where he's getting these tune-ups and these soft touches, and they want him to get on his feet and all of that. Broner will give you the exposure. Maybe not the huge money, but he'll give you exposure because people are going to tune in to watch Broner. But after that, me included, I want to know where you're going to go from here. What are you going to do? It's fights out there, and these are hard fights.
Yeah,
hard fights.
I want to see him take a big fight, and then I don't want to see him take a shitty fight. I want to see him get another big fight and move upward. Yeah, it's upward motion.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I want to see. I mean, even you want to see him now take a step from Broner, because really he made Broner look like a tune-up opponent. He really did.
Yeah.
He was able to cope with what Broner gave him, and of course Broner is Broner, but he made that look just as easy as Sean Porter made it look. So exactly, where are you going to go from here? What are you going to do? Who are you going to fight? Because it's guys and boxing fans, they know in and around that weight class that can really give him that test and that work.
Something I've noticed, and we'll get to it in a minute, but
Yeah.
I see Spence a bit frustrated and pissed off because of that, because of the upward motion is not
Right.
there. He went from Brook to Lamont Peterson.
He explained that though, and he said, people aren't answering the call, and this is something that he actually had trouble with. Before he was calling these guys out like David Avanesian. I forgot who else was on that IBF side that, he just wanted to fight as, I don't want to say a voluntary, but, just to stay busy opponent. And none of these guys were answering the call. But, he's saying this now with Danny Garcia and Sean Porter, with these guys. So, I mean, I don't know what he is to do now.
Do you think he'll do something drastic if he doesn't get Thurman next?
You gotta define drastic though. Are you talking about like sign with Golden Boy drastic? Is this what you're talking about?
It doesn't necessarily have to be Golden Boy. It could be Matchroom.
I don't think so. I think that right now, he's still in a comfortable spot to where he's getting the marketability, and really his marketability comes from fans like us.
And
he's
getting the $3.5 million to fight Lamont Peterson.
You know what though, and that's another thing that's all together. Why is that $3.5 million there? Is it a thank you for not leaving me and going with Golden Boy? Is it and whatever it is, any job, like my job has bonuses and incentives and all kinds of shit that you can.
But how long can you keep feeding him $3 million, giving him less than the best fights, and not expect them to? Because I see Spence the same way I see Crawford, as far as their desire to be, great and to be the best and to find out, test themselves. And when they're put in a position where they can't do that, I don't care how much money you're going to pay them. They're gonna put a stop to it at some point, and they're gonna make a decision.
They have to.
That's not happened with Crawford because they've carried him along fairly well to the point where now he's fighting for, his next two fights are probably going to be Horn and Pacquiao.
Right.
So he's got upward mobility there, and they're challenging him at every step. But Spence keeps getting the runaround. Then what kind of advice is he getting? What is it the best situation for him, regardless if it's Al Heyman or whoever it is? I mean, it would kill you. It would kill you. But if Spence signed with Top Rank, it would make Spence Crawford the easiest fight in the world to make.
Yeah, absolutely, and that would. And to be honest with you, I think personally, that the Keith Thurman fight with Errol Spence is the biggest moneymaker in the division. But that Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence fight, that man,
I you know
I don't.
I don't think Thurman is Spence is the biggest moneymaker, and I don't think that because Thurman he's been a champion for now what 4 years, and
Yeah, that's about right.
he's less recognizable than maybe even Spence right now. He's less recognizable than Crawford for sure. And
Yep.
part of it has to do with his injury. I understand that, but
Yep.
the other part has to do with fighting in different channels at different times, and a
Yeah.
good opponent and a weak opponent, a weak opponent. You know,
You know what? I'll have to. I gotta disagree with you there, though. Keith Thurman fought on NBC, or did he fight on CBS against Sean Porter? I want to attribute, and I'm not gonna give. I don't want to give Keith Thurman any excuses. Keith Thurman is injured. He
yeah,
had surgery.
yeah,
He got married. He's
yeah,
doing his personal stuff. I think before all of that, Keith Thurman, he fought Danny Garcia and Sean Porter pretty much back to back, or he did fight him back to back. Um, at one point, there was nobody more recognizable than Keith Thurman in the 147-pound division. Um, and then if you put it to where Keith Thurman laid that groundwork with calling out Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence, I mean, and Floyd Mayweather incessantly. I mean, he really, really was calling them out. Um, I would say even to right now, Keith Thurman is still the man in the division. Um, Especially when he gets up and fighting again, I think Keith Thurman is the more recognizable guy. You know what Terrence Crawford did at 140. You know, I actually had to put Terrence Crawford stuff into perspective. Terrence Crawford, he fought Julius Ndongo, became undisputed, but Terrence Crawford he doesn't have he everything he has is boxing skills, and that's no knock on him. Terrence Crawford just doesn't market himself. He needs a promoter. You know, he needs
yeah.
one of these guys to go out and push him. Keith Thurman don't need that. Errol Spence don't need that. You know, you see Terrence Crawford, he's a little bit camera shy. You know, he's not as well spoken, maybe not as articulate. Keith Thurman is. He can explain what's going on with you, with everybody, with a fight, with everything. And Errol Spence can too. I think those are the two top guys as far as faces in the welterweight division. Even if Terrence Crawford beats Jeff Horn, um, even if he beats him soundly, even if he knocks him out like he did Julius Ndongo, I think those other two guys will still be on top of him in terms of faces in the division and who you recognize.
What happens when, or if I say when, but if he beats Horn and then beats Pacquiao?
See, that's tough too. That's tough. But I'll say that Terrence Crawford is the kind of cat to where the world will still be his oyster. Whatever he does with it, then he's going to do that. If he still wants to be, small town Nebraska, farm boy and from middle America, this, that, and the other, if he wants to do that, then he's going to do that. And he will be recognized as such.
Here's why I tell
If
you,
not,
with Thurman, and I'll explain it maybe this way. You can see, yeah, he's fought these guys,
go ahead.
and he's had the best run of all the PBC guys
Mm,
with opponents. He's had the best opponents of all the PBC guys that have been on the air.
yep,
He's had them back to back. But if he fights this year, I'm saying if he fights this year,
yep,
it'll be the third fight in 3 years for him.
yep.
So it's almost not
You're right.
enough. It's not enough. Yeah, they're great fights, but you see him 1 year, and then you don't see him to the next year, and then you don't see him to the next year.
Right,
So there's
right,
this withdrawal, this removal of his face from the media that other
right,
guys like Spence, almost Spence was going to
right.
end up in the same boat, and until he started, complaining. He
Mm,
he he
yep.
complained at the end of the Brook fight. He said he wants to be more active, busier, and then they sat him down again. Thurman has a better opposition. He's got the best resume out there at 147.
Right.
But the continuity hasn't
Right.
been there in the last 3 years. Blame whoever you want to blame for that. It doesn't matter.
You know, this is the way that I see it, though. And this is especially true at 147. Now, you're always going to have, and Bob Arum will have, like he had Manny Pacquiao. He had Manny Pacquiao and Tim Bradley at the same time. He had two guys that he could have went and put over on the other side, against the Heyman guys, the Thurmans and the Spences, even though Spence wasn't even really relevant at that time, but he could have put him in with Mayweather and Sean Porter and Devin Alexander, all those dudes then. He could have had him jump across the promotional pond and everything would have been cool. And this is what I was saying before. Heyman has two good welterweights, blah blah blah. It's always a yeah, but with that. They need to go over there to that other side and prove that they're the best. If not, then they really don't have anything. They have each other and, this, that, and the other. I don't think that Bob Arum is in touch enough with the demographic that's a little bit younger, a little bit more cool and technologically savvy and this, that, and the other in order to push Terrence Crawford's name out there like that. And boxing skills, they're not going to do it enough. It's not going to do it enough. It. And even if you look on Terrence Crawford, see, this is something that I admire about Terrence Crawford. When you see TC, you see him training, or he has his cars up there, or he has his family up there. I like that about him because it shows you that he's serious about things that matter. But at the same time, that's not going to move the needle. And Bob Arum isn't going to do anything for a young black kid from Nebraska to move the needle. He's not going
Bob
to do
is
it.
not going to do
The
it,
thing that I
but
commend,
Todd will, and this is where that move to ESPN really has a lot
yeah,
to do with it because they're looking to use the multi-platform that ESPN has,
yeah,
and that's how they've been getting all these views and they're looking to push these fighters. I don't know if you noticed, but they're doing like basically like many spots on the fighters. They're showing them. I'm seeing them on
right,
YouTube. I'm seeing them on ESPN.com as fights start getting
yep,
closer. Maybe that's a way to reach that fan base, but in the end,
yep,
it's the matchup that's going to bring the fans. So
hmm.
my concern is
Well,
once Crawford is done with Horn and Pacquiao, is he going to be ignored like Rigondeaux got ignored by Santa Cruz and Frampton and all these other guys who acted like he didn't even
right,
exist? So that's going to be
right,
a shame. That's going to be a shame if that happens, because I know that at least
right.
Top Rank is not afraid to go over and fight. They've already said they'll be willing to fight in Showtime. They've already said they'd be willing to fight with Schaefer. You know, many years ago,
I don't.
if you mentioned Schaefer's
The
name
one
to
thing
Bob
about
Arum, it was like mentioning the devil.
that's the one thing though that I don't believe. I understand what they say. I don't, and I'll tell you this: one thing that I'm looking for, because I don't know if you just saw Errol Spence just recently go on First Take on
I
ESPN, and the
saw it.
one thing that they were trying to do, they were trying to push the Terrence Crawford fight down his throat.
Yes,
They
yes.
were trying to do it. Errol Spence, he handled it well. He didn't take the bait. I know what they were trying to do though. They were trying to preliminarily build up a matchup between them. But the one thing that I'll say, if Errol Spence goes in here and he absolutely destroys Lamont Peterson, I'm talking about within like 3-4 rounds, destroys him like he destroyed Chris Algieri, right? I believe, and this has nothing to do with Terrence Crawford, I believe that Bob Arum will hide Terrence Crawford. If that means another one or two tune-ups, if that means, this, that, and the other, I think he will find opponents to feed to Terrence Crawford. before he puts him in there with Errol Spence, especially if he destroys Lamont Peterson. I think that this fight is really important. It's going to say a lot going forward. I believe that this fight is going to be, one of those fights that are going to be marinated. They may even wait until Errol Spence really struggles to make the weight in order to, really fight him like that. I also believe with the way that they were trying to push this fight, with the way Max was talking about it, I also believe that they only want to have this fight on ESPN, nowhere else. Not even on network television, not on Fox or CBS or any kind of PBC affiliated, network. I think they only want to have this on ESPN. So we'll see how this goes. I don't know though. This is going to be a tough. I think it's going to be just as tough to make because both guys are in their prime, and then both guys have egos attached to them. I know both guys want to fight each other, but
How do you think Lamont Peterson would fare against Crawford?
a lot better than he would against Errol Spence. I was looking at Terrence Crawford fight Felix Diaz, and that was a fight that I actually thought Diaz was going to do a lot better in. Crawford, he dominated him, whatever, that's fine. But Felix Diaz did some good things in there, some things that showed promise, and he did some things that makes me think that Terrence Crawford, he's not going to be able to afford to do that shit
He's vulnerable.
against
I
Errol
agree.
Spence.
Crawford is
Um,
vulnerable. He's got some holes in his
he,
game.
man, Crawford, oh, he does. But when Crawford really wants to be technical, he can do it. And that's one thing to me that's scary about Crawford is that he can switch on a dime,
Yeah.
based on whatever the hell he's feeling in his head. He can do whatever he wants to do.
It's
But
funny you mentioned
I don't know
Felix
what's going to
Diaz
happen.
because Felix Diaz, he was really beating Lamont Peterson too.
That's exactly right. I don't. The crazy thing about Terrence Crawford, if it's just going to be a boxing match, then I would think that Terrence Crawford would win. And I would think that he would outclass Errol Spence. Because the one thing that Terrence Crawford has is Terrence Crawford actually has a real defense when he wants to have it. A real defense.
Yeah.
He can go in there and not get hit and hold an opponent to 15, 16% if he wants to. But it's something in him that tells him, I need to make this a dogfight. I'm not going out like this. And he does that, and he leaves himself wide open
He
when he
does.
starts fighting. And that's something that plays in Errol's favor.
He does. And it does, but we have to look at history. If we look back a couple of fights to the Posto fight, Posto had just come out of knocking out Lucas Matisse. Crawford just realized he wasn't going to take a chance with Posto. And what did he do? He completely outboxed him.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely outboxed him. You're
Completely
exactly right.
outboxed him.
Yeah, he knocked him down. I think the power overwhelmed him as well because Postal was at a point where he didn't want to engage late in the fight.
But even so, Crawford stuck to the game plan and didn't just go into a full-out firefight with Posto because he knew better. So he stuck to the game plan.
Yeah.
He boxed. He boxed circles around him. That's basically how I see a fight with Spence happening. I don't think that Crawford would take a chance knowing that Spence has that much power and speed and skill. So that's why I tell you that
the one thing I got to say to that though,
I think Spence
Victor
would have
Postal doesn't have.
no.
Well, he doesn't have the depth to his game
Right.
that Spence has. Errol, see, and the thing is that Errol does his basics are very good, very technical, very fundamental. But even when he's on the inside, and that's where I would fear for Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford's inside game falls apart to where it tells me that he may not be as well schooled as what everybody says that he is and what everybody thinks that he is. He can box and box circles around all those dudes. Victor Postal, though, isn't one of those guys who is going to be like, you know what, screw this. I'm going to jab my way in,
And
move my head, and
yeah,
make this a dogfight.
yeah.
Terrence Crawford, I'm going to treat him like I treated Lucas Matisse, and he was sadly mistaken. And we haven't even seen him in the ring since. With Arrow, though, there's that screw it to his game. Same thing with Crawford. But when Crawford says screw it, he really says screw it. Screw the technique, screw everything. When Arrow does it, it's
There's one more
a
variable
method
that
to
I'm
it.
concerned about, and that's we're not sure about Errol Spence's chin, and that's something that still needs to be proven. He got buzzed by some shots
Did you?
that Brooke landed, but it wasn't anything flush. I'm not saying that Crawford is going to be
Okay.
a huge
Let's
puncher at
let's
147, but he brought his power up from 135 to 140, and he looked pretty muscular. He looked pretty good
well,
for the weight that he was. I think he was what, 155, 150 something is what he
right,
weighed at, or
right.
160.
But you know what? Let me tell you this though. When I saw Terrence Crawford weighing 177 pounds on that scale, that surprised the hell out of me. That means he's packing on a lot of muscle.
Yeah,
So I think he's going to be plenty strong enough for the division. But a lot of people, they were getting on me on the page about this. I want to see how Terrence Crawford fares against Jeff Horn. I don't think it's going to be a one-sided beatdown the way people are saying that it is.
no,
Jeff Horn's a physical fighter, and
yeah,
that's just the type of fighter
that
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 you want to
yeah.
fight in order to get ready for like Errol Spence. Jeff Horn is a physical,
This is a
physical
good
fighter. Maybe
fight.
not a great boxer.
It's a good
He's
barometer
physical.
to tell us where Crawford is going to sit in the division. If he's able to walk through
Well,
Horn, then
that's it. You know, nothing says welcome to 147 like going up against Jeff Horn. That's kind of like I'll walk up to you and I'm from, wherever the hell I'm from. If I'm from China and I'll walk up to somebody like good at, and they'll tell me like, oh yeah, go down the streets, me a good taste of what, hoods in America are like. It's the same thing to me
yeah,
with Jeff Horn. That's not really the type of opponent that you're gonna fight Jeff Horn. I'm not. I talked a lot of mess about Jeff Horn, man, but that dude, he nothing he does really jumps off the page. But one thing I do look at, he's physical. He was noticeably stronger than Manny Pacquiao. I think Manny Pacquiao is strong. But when he went up against that Corcoran guy, God, that was a rugged fight, man.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Corcoran was way bigger than he was. He was matching them strength for strength. Corcoran was probably a little bit stronger because he was huge.
yeah.
But what he started doing though towards the end, he started boxing Corcoran, and that's where he got over. So it showed me that he has layers to his game too. That's going to be an interesting fight.
What's your prediction on the fight?
I see a rugged fight, but I see something like 7 rounds to 5, maybe a close 8 round to 4. I see Terrence Crawford has the defense to do what he has to do and not take major punishment. And Crawford might actually cut him up, and that'll be problematic for Jeff Horn. But that'll be a tough fight, man. We'll see how it goes. I want to see when they're in close quarters, shoulder to shoulder, clinching, wrapping up. I want to see that. Now, if Crawford boxes him, then that's fine. Something tells me that Jeff Horn isn't just gonna get outboxed for 12 rounds. Something else is gonna have to happen, and Crawford is gonna have to pull that spectacular stuff out his hat in order to win this one.
I think that's exactly what he's going to do, and I have enough faith in Crawford to think that he's a smart kid.
Yep.
He may be hood and he may be not well spoken, but he's smart in the sense that he knows that he has to sell himself in the fight. And there's going to be a sizable amount of viewers watching this. He's going to want to go out and take control of the fight and stop Horn. So
Oh yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
think it's gonna I think it's going to be either a TKO or it's going to be a KO. I think it's going to be a KO. It's probably going to be on cuts, like you
After
mentioned. You know,
after what I saw Pacquiao hit Jeff Horn with, I think a KO or a TKO is out the question.
I
I
see
can't
it.
see it.
I see it.
I cannot see it. Just Pacquiao has things about him too that I told you that Pacquiao, he's a little guy, but I think he's physically, I think his attributes are off the page,
Yeah.
and Crawford don't have that. So if Horn stood up to that, barely, but stood up, I think he can stand up to TC. Man, TC, I think he's gonna have to go to, another gear, another dimension, in order to win this fight. And one thing I noticed about Horn too, Horn's not gonna get tired. He's not gonna fade late, or you don't have to worry about him wilting. The only thing that will stop him, his momentum anyway, is his face breaking up. But other than that, I don't think it's going to be one of those cute fights to where he can pick shots and switch stances and jab him a couple of times. Something else is going to have to happen for Crawford, and I think he can do it. He has the ability, he has the skills, but Horn's got some dog in him. That dude can fight, and he can make it rugged. So I think that's exactly what he's going to try and do. That's the only way that he has a chance, is to make it rugged. And we'll see how Crawford stands up physically in that fight when he makes it rugged.
So who do you think Manny's going to fight?
They're saying Lomachenko.
I don't see it.
God, I hope not. To be honest with you, I think he might wait around for the winner between Horn and Crawford. I don't want him fighting Lomachenko. Really, I don't want Manny fighting anyone. He's proven everything. Why? Unless he really needs the money, why is he fighting?
Either that or he needs a tune-up. But I don't know if he needs a tune-up.
That guy don't need tune-up, man. He's gonna, you know what? Mentally, everybody's a tune-up for him at this point. He's been there, done that. It doesn't matter who you are. He's gonna train the same way. It's gonna be no revitalization in his game. The Manny that you see and that you've been seeing for maybe 8 years is the Manny that you're gonna get. So he doesn't need any tune-ups. He doesn't need anything. He's still the cash cow of the division.
How
He'll
about
jump right in there with whoever.
How about Amir Khan?
God, no. I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility? No.
Here's why I say it. Amir wants the big fights. Amir has the worst chin in the division.
Right.
That would make Manny look really good. It would revitalize him in the eyes of the casual fans. And oh, look, Manny still has it. Look, he knocked out a bigger guy.
Yeah.
Why else?
Yeah.
Why else would you have Amir Khan in anybody's fight? I mean, they used him against Canelo for that purpose. There's no other purpose than to give Canelo an easy KO.
Oh God. Man, look, if Amir Khan, that's another one that needs to retire too. I don't know what he's doing. I know what Amir Khan's looking for. He's looking for any big fight. Amir Khan is a whore. That's what he is.
Yeah.
He's a boxing whore. He is willing to do whatever it takes for a little bit of piece of change. Fighting Manny Pacquiao, yeah, he would do it, but oh man, you know what? I actually think that that's a risky fight for Manny Pacquiao, though. In terms of just looking good, I don't think he'll look spectacular in that fight, but oh man, I don't know.
All he needs to do is land one good shot, and that's it for Khan. I would have rather seen
Amir Khan.
Somebody like Garcia or Danny Garcia step up, or even Broner step up.
About Manny Pacquiao versus Danny Garcia.
Yeah, a while back, a few years back when they declined the offers. They offered him like $5 million each to go fight, and they just turned him down.
Ah, I forgot about that.
I
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would I
yeah.
would have I would have
Um,
enjoyed seeing those fights.
but see, that's another fight, and I saw some people saying that Danny Garcia would beat Pacquiao. You know, this, that, and the other. That's another fight that'll make Danny Garcia look real bad.
Yeah,
He'd be battered up, beaten, bloody. He'd look terrible in that fight. You know, and the plan is out on Danny Garcia. Everybody knows how to beat him. All you got to do is just box, and then you're fine. Pacquiao, I think Pacquiao would kill him. They might stop that fight just off of cuts. That'd
who's
be
Garcia fighting?
to be honest with you. I think Garcia's fighting Brandon fucking Rios, man. Garbage,
I,
dude. That's a ridiculous fight. I mean, now from a pure matchmaking standpoint, I don't have a problem with it because Danny Garcia has had a long layoff, a long and unnecessary layoff, but he has to get back in the driver's seat. What better person to do it with than somebody who you can hit all night long? So, yeah, cool, whatever, that's fine. But you know how you were talking about that upward mobility? That's something that I need to see too. So, Danny Garcia after this, and it seems like everybody's trying to stall out for Keith Thurman and the Keith Thurman opportunity. That should tell you that I think the money is with Keith Thurman. And then number two, the easier fight stylistically is with Keith Thurman. No one's really calling out Terrence Crawford. No one's calling out Errol Spence. So, hey,
I
there it is.
see the problem that I see with all this is that they keep trying to rehabilitate all these shitty fighters. You have Alexander
Yep.
fighting Victor Ortiz. Why, I have no
Yep.
fucking idea. Because they're gonna use one of them to fight Thurman or Spence, or they're gonna throw one of those guys. Whoever wins, they're gonna throw him in there as a filler fight again.
Mm.
That's what upsets me about all this and seeing these fights
Mm.
happening. These fights
Well,
should not happen. I mean, they should not be a main event for sure.
mm.
Maybe if you want to stick them in the
Mm.
undercard, I'm not mad at that.
I see what you mean.
But
I see. You know, the one person that sticks out to me, and this is who I want to know what he's gonna do, is Sean Porter. I don't. That's the one where he's still a prime fighter. He lost to Kell Brook, okay. Lost to Keith Thurman in a close one. I thought it was a draw personally. He needs to do something, and there needs to be a plan for him because I don't think of him the way I think of Danny Garcia. It's from Danny Garcia, like Rios and Alexander and Victor Ortiz and Berto, who he beat. I still see Sean Porter based on the matchup. I see him as a threat, a real one though. So
he has
they need to
value.
do something with him.
Sean Porter has
Um,
value.
he definitely has value,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not only that, he's one of these fighters that you always preach about that he wants to remain active. Sean Porter is a gym rat. He wants to remain active. He says that too. I want to fight 3 times, 4 times, whatever they throw at him, he'll take it. He's kind of shown you that. And he's already fought these guys. He's fought Broner. He's destroyed Devin Alexander. He destroyed Paulie Malignaggi. I don't know what Sean Porter's trying to do. It seems like he's waiting on Keith Thurman and hoping the WBC will enforce that mandatory. So Sean Porter, like you said, has value. I think he's definitely marketable. His dad's antics, he can be right up there too. But Sean, they need to come up with a plan for Sean, a good one, and that'll be good. Him and Danny Garcia to me should be a no-brainer. No-brainer. Let's
Yes,
That's easy to me. Make that fight the winner fights Keith Thurman. Easy.
sure. Is there somebody with enough brains over there to think in that way and to map it out that way? That's my concern. I have no faith
But
in
it
those
has to be
guys.
something deeper. I think that the brains are there because it's regular people who are thinking about this. It's something, and I think it's Danny Garcia. I think he's one of these people that are out here impeding progress also. And you know what? Don't get me wrong. Danny Garcia, to be honest, on paper, has a hell of a resume. He does. He does. All the way from 140, he has a great resume. You know, because Danny Garcia kind of had to carve his name out the hard way. He was the guy who was, the tune-up opponent for a lot of these, ex-champions out there, and he knocked them all off.
He has a
But
very good
I
resume,
mean,
but
boxing now,
you have to
he does.
you have to look at it closer because there's a lot of up and down in there.
Yep.
And so
Oh yeah.
he's fought some very good fights, but he's fought some very bad fights, and he's looked very bad in some fights that he shouldn't have looked bad. Mauricio
Right.
Herrera, for example, he looked terrible in that fight.
Looked horrible.
Terrible. He lost that fight.
Horrible.
In my view, he lost that fight.
Yeah, he did.
That was a gimme for him. That was a gift. He's out there fighting Zab Judah. He's fighting Zab Judah,
Right.
who was basically out of boxing already, practically retired. Brought back
Yep.
to fight Danny Garcia. Same thing with Malignaggi.
Yep.
No business
Yep.
in having Malignaggi fighting him. So yeah, he's got a good resume, but he also has a lot of ups and downs. Rod Salka after Mauricio Herrera. It's coming off of fighting. He beat Amir Khan spectacularly. I remember that fight like it
Yep.
was yesterday, and this fight was almost
Yep.
6 years ago. Then he goes and he fights a rematch with Eric Morales when there shouldn't even been a
Yep.
rematch. To go and
Yep.
then
I
fight
remember
Zab
that.
Judah, who was practically retired, to then take
Yep.
Lucas Matisse, which was a upward movement fight, and then goes and fights Mauricio Herrera and Rod Salka, and then
Yep.
looks like shit against Peterson, and then he fights Paulie Malignaggi and Robert Guerrero and Samuel Vargas. I don't even remember who Samuel Vargas is.
Yeah, I know. Right.
On his way to fight, and again, it's like a lot of peaks and valleys, ups and downs. Robert Guerrero, Samuel Vargas, Keith Thurman, and now Brandon Rios.
Yep.
Up and down, up
Yep.
and down. So he's got the names, he's got the fighters, he's got a lot of fights that he was maybe thought of as the underdog that he did pull a win out.
I know. That's the one thing about Danny Garcia to where, and I'm gonna tell you when he see that Lucas Matisse fight was that fight right there to put him maybe to catapult him to the platform of superstardom.
Yes.
He had it right there because if I remember correctly, that was on the Mayweather Canelo undercard. A lot of eyes on that fight.
Yes.
I even looked in the crowd. The crowd was pretty filled for that fight. Maybe not to capacity, but that crowd was it was packed for that fight.
I think after the Matisse fight,
Keith Thurman again.
Matisse, after that fight, they really should have moved him up, and find him some good fights. Instead, they gave him four less than desirable fights. He spent the next 2 years just, devaluing himself.
That might be his best win, in terms of all things considered, to where you consider that both guys were at their peak. And because if you remember, Matisse, he came off of knocking out Lamont Peterson.
Right.
And he looked unstoppable at the time, unbeatable. And then Danny Garcia outboxes Matisse. It was, I don't know. I really don't know. He needs to come on, but Sean Porter is the one that I look at and I'm like, you know what? There needs to be something with Sean. They need to get him fights, or he needs to take fights.
The last I heard from Sean Porter was that they weren't going to find anybody unless it was Keith Thurman.
Yeah, that's what he said after I think after beating Berto.
Right.
That's crazy to me, I really wish that Keith wasn't injured.
But then again, can you blame Porter because he had to take the Berto fight? There was no other fight for him. They fed him Andre Berto. What are they going to feed him next? Victor Ortiz? Brandon Rios? He
Yeah,
wants the
Alexander
bigger fight.
again.
So to
I don't
me,
know.
it's
I
kind of
don't
like
know.
he's taking a stand and saying, look, stop feeding me these guys and give me the big fights, or else I won't fight. So he's kind of benched himself.
Right. He has too much value, like you said, to for him to be the odd man out like this. But like I said, how much of this is his doing? How much of this is, his team that's, over him?
Yeah.
But I don't understand it.
You
I
know,
really don't.
Need to hear Need to hear Need to hear
And with that, we end tonight's show. I want to thank my co-host, Corling Durin, coming straight to us from San Antonio, Texas, the Dirty Third. This is Dave Carr from Clearwater, Florida, home of one-time Keith Thurman, saying goodnight. This is the Spartan Boxing Radio Show.